my friend Ian Bremmer over at G0.
I love that guy.
He had an interesting tweet about an hour before we sat down. He said, Musk is a bit more deferential to Xi than he is to Trump. I thought it was obviously, I know what he was doing there.
It's 100%
but it rang
true.
a little bit true.
Not a little bit, it's 100% true. Look, this is what I was on Tim Pool a couple of years ago when Tim Pool was doing it from Matt Gaetz' office. And, you know, Tim Pool was up in the West Virginia, never takes a show on the road, came to think, and we're sitting there talking, I think it was 18 months, 2 years ago, and I said, they got onto the thing, because there's a lot of fanboys that watch Tim Pool, although he's a pretty tough customer of Elon Musk, and we got into the conversation. I said, the guy's totally owned by the Chinese Communist Party through the joint venture in Shanghai, and he's totally differential. He congratulated them on the 100th anniversary of the thing. I said, he
didn't call for his impeachment.
No, exactly. Not just
and
he's
not to poke.
No, not to poke. Better than Ian Bremmer.
Poke it.
He's an agent of influence, I would say, an agent of influence, and
that's an allegation.
I'm calling for an investigation. Okay. I think if you go back and connect the dots, the question I want to have answered is not just how the whole briefing of why would a businessman, right, want a briefing, even if it dealt with, you know, he's going to find waste, fraud, and abuse. Why would you need a briefing at a highly classified level in the tank at the Pentagon on the China war plan? And I want to connect.
Would the CEO of Boeing get a briefing like that?
And he would most certainly would not, sir.
Right, and Boeing arguably has much of a relationship with Pentagon.
Lockheed Martin, which has, as you know, the most black programs historically, right? They would not get that briefing because they don't have a need to know. They know aspects of it, right? They may know certain aspects of it or where their programs are, but they don't have that need to know. That's a huge imbalance. I want to go all the way back to, because during in leading up to the inauguration, all these stories started to break about Xi was being invited to the inauguration. Yeah. And I heard that was being driven by certain elements, and I think that's got to be investigated. You have to investigate. To me, this is a national security issue. Obviously, the security clearance should be pulled immediately, and a full investigation should happen.
So,
and I say that more in sorrow than in anger.
I was just going to say, let's go back to mid-July 2024 when Musk jumped on the MAGA train and he put the hat on and he was
writing checks.
Were you I'm in, or were you skeptical then?
Even before, as he led it into Twitter, is that you always, because remember, they're all progressive Democrats. I mean, he was the golden child of the progressive left for years, not just with Tesla, with everything he had to do, the transhumanism, all of it. And what I liked and admired, he understood the math first. And I told people, I was his biggest supporter, saying, hey, when he wrote those checks, $250 million, to support the ground game, and he went into Pennsylvania, Michigan, all of it, and said, hey, this is all about getting out and knocking doors. It's low propensity, low information voters. I mean, he went to Charlie Kirk's guy and saw the entire plan and said, I'm in. That shows you intelligence. But still, you remember, Trump is not a guy that responds to donors. Donors ask him all the time for things. He just doesn't respond to them. But I knew at the time, and then later, that this could be a problem, and you just have to put up guardrails. And the guardrails just, I don't think, were put up.
Do you think Musk is right, though, when he says without his money?
Trump would have won. Trump would have won. We would have held the House, and we would have taken the Senate. Would we have learned about that at 11 o'clock at night? I don't think so.
So you think it made it a little bit easier?
It made it definitely. Look, that kind of money support the ground game, no doubt. President Trump was going to win, given the coalition we put together. That being said, it would have been a 3 o'clock in the morning. It would have been 3 o'clock in the morning versus 11 o'clock. But no, it wasn't. And if it hadn't written the check, we still would have won. It just been a tougher grind.
My favorite lead was from The Atlantic that said, these are two guys that thought they had successfully bought each other out. And what did Musk not see?
He didn't see the reality. This is why I was so upset about what happened the other day. And President Trump has just been announced that they're going to have an all-day meeting at Camp David tomorrow. I mean, think about it, Chuck. You have these, he's trying to solve and get everybody to lay down their guns on the beginning part of the kinetic part of the Third World War. Whether it's Ukraine, that whole arc of instability from Kursk all the way down to the Red Sea, right? Also China. You know, he's got his team over in London right now. He's trying to do that. we're having riots now in LA to block the deportations. The courts are doing it. He's fighting on the deportations nonstop. That'll go to the Supreme Court. It'll be a huge constitutional, as I think, constitutional crisis now. Then you've got the whole big, beautiful bill with the tariffs, all of it in there, and he's doing all this simultaneously, including going up to the Hill and whipping, which no president's ever done. Went to the conference 2 weeks ago in the House and basically whipping his own bill to get it done.
Speaker. He's the speaker. I say this with respect to Speaker Johnson, but he can't get a vote without Trump.
100%. And no whip.
I mean, Trump is the speaker and the president.
Yes, at the same time, 100%. Yeah. So with that burden on him, the last thing he needs is somebody to go off. And also, look, the Wall Street Journal, Josh Dawson and those guys, the buried lead that nobody's talking about, besides the China thing, the buried lead that nobody's talking about, two things in the Wall Street Journal, I think it was from last Saturday. They go, Trump actually looks around on the Doge thing and said, hey, was this all bullshit? Where's the fraud? Where's my $1 trillion? And that's what he invested. But more important,
well, he was counting on that also to pay for the tax cut.
100%. He believed that the $1 trillion in fraud was going to be there, that everything programmatically would be gravy, right? The other thing that, you know Trump as well as anybody, tariffs are...
He loves them, doesn't he?
It's a blazing in his soul.
That'd be damned.
No, that is like high church to him.
Right.
The Wall Street Journal article, 10 paragraphs down, Elon's calling CEOs to have them call Trump and say that tariffs are wrong. Now, far be it from me to say that's part of the relationship with the Chinese Communist Party, but when he's whipping against the tariffs, you are going into basically fundamental ideology of MAGA.
Well, this is where this relationship always seemed like a marriage of convenience. That it was a marriage of the moment. He needed some resources, and the tech community got on board. Why do you think they got on board?
Because I think the David Saxon guys who were smart early on, I think they saw the math. I think they saw the ability. And they made a bet, but I think they
Don't you think they thought they could work Trump? They could buy him off, and that's why they jumped in?
Well, no, but the reason is they thought they could. First off, if he can't win, there's nothing to buy off. So they thought initially he could win.
They all thought they were buying him off.
They thought he was buying him off. I said he's like a Roman general that has the German chieftains. I made this film, Titus Andronicus, with Anthony Hopkins.
I remember you saying this
and the
line.
opening scene is Titus the general coming in with Jessica Lange and all the barbarians. They're finding out, remember, he's hit Apple. The other day we're talking about taking Amazon to court. So when I say neo-Brandeisian, the thing that actually unifies one part of the country is, I say, the Lena Khan and the Chopra kind of antitrust and our antitrust. That you've got to break up the oligarchs.
There's a significant chunk of the current Republican Party that is supporting Trump in name only and totally disagrees with you on all of this.
Okay, we've changed the electorate. I would say the Republican Party, like even increasing taxes, not just disagrees, vehemently disagrees, but that is the old Republican Party that can't win elections anymore. Right. But the populist nationalists, right, want a breakup of the oligarchs. We want a decrease in corporate power, right? Decrease in government power too. But the merger of them is kind of the CCP's model, right? A handful of powerful companies. This is why Kamala Harris came under such. And I keep saying the Democrats, the guys who own the Democratic Party, are the guys that really created the oligarchs. You see the concentration of power. If you look at a way forward in American politics, you look at Fetterman, you look at Ro Khanna, you look at some of these economic nationalists and populists where we're talking about the same things, but no. Did we have on Capitol Hill, you know, how much support do you think, for raising taxes in the upper brackets? Not a lot. I'm not saying it's not going to get done.
Now that Musk is gone, do you think there's actually some breathing room on that?
I don't think I think it's a long way from gone. I
think
it's a long way from gone.
You think he can work his way back into the circle within reason?
No, I do not. But that doesn't mean, look.
He's going to try, though.
I think the couple of stories breaking today. Number one, that already the Pentagon and other people are looking for a replacement for SpaceX. Because I make the case if 90% of SpaceX's, first of all, what he tweeted out the other day about the Dragon program, and they say this in the story, if Lockheed Martin or any CEO had done that the board would immediately fired him, right? And they would have gone to the Pentagon and space thing.
It's not lost on me that Musk ratcheted that threat back pretty quickly.
Immediately. Yeah. But it's still, you can't have something like that. 90%, I think it's 90% of SpaceX's revenues come from the government contracts, okay? They just did a financing, we find out, at a $318 billion valuation. I think that he owns 50%, so he's made $100 to $150 billion in net worth on government contracts. Why do we not have warrants or options, huge packages for the American taxpayer as part of that? I'm actually for, and I realize I always take a maximalist position. I think we ought to go in and say to the new management, we're going to nationalize SpaceX because it's a government entity anyway with 90% of the revenues.
Well, it can't function without NASA. NASA can't function without it.
Exactly.
Right.
This is my point. And ongoing, and the program he was talking about cutting is a $100 billion program to save the astronauts. This is across the board. We just find out now that Starlink has completely rewired the White House to put Starlink in. And maybe even some of the White House personnel. So who knows? I think my point is, let's everybody step back, take a deep breath. I think there has to be formal investigations. I think there has to be formal investigations.
Where do these investigations come from? Is it IGs or
I think,
we don't have IGs right now.
I think it has to be, the best way to do it is a special counsel that can kind of oversee everything. Pull the security clearance for the drugs temporarily. Investigate the whole drug situation.
By the way, he never would have passed a security clearance as just a mid-level staffer.
Zero.
Given what the drug use that was on the record.
Zero. When he laid hands on Scott Besson, as you know,
you were the narrator of the story for the Post. I noticed they hung it on you. They don't, which tells me they didn't have it from anybody else.
Well, so I think it was broke somewhere else first. Actually, it was somewhere. I'm just reaffirming. Okay. Hang on. When he laid hands on Scott Besson, and that fight. What did the fight come about? It was about a cabinet official standing up and saying, look, I'm running my deal. I can't have this guy. And the president backing up the cabinet official about IRS, right? Because Scott Besson's under a little pressure to make sure I get every piece of cash that comes in here for deficit. You can't mess around, right? So, and that was a huge contention. And the president basically came to the conclusion Scott Besson's the cabinet secretary, he's going to get it. When it got heated and it moved out into the passageway, as you know from...
It was a physical accosting of him?
You have to check the other people that were there, but let's say.
Well,
this.
You told the story of an elbow.
The elbow on his shoulder. Scott Besson's a protected person, by definition, by the Secret Service.
Yes.
Laying hands on any when Scott Besson shows up, he's got five Secret Service cars.
He's in the line of succession.
He's in the line of succession. Yeah. He's a protected person. If you lay hands on Scott Besson, you have to go through an immediate investigation. The first thing they do in the investigation, you got to drop, right? And if you drop dirty. And people were saying the word is that was the day he was microdosing or doing whatever, twerking, right? So I don't know, but the games have to stop. President Trump's under the greatest pressure he's ever been under. He's got to focus on this. You can't have people that are close to him. And remember, President Trump took him into his personal that I've never seen before. At Mar-a-Lago, he and the son, and he was invited to Christmas dinner.
Why do you think that was?
I think President Trump was actually quite fond of him at one time when he first kind of came on the scene and saw the enthusiasm.
I think he was kind of enamored that Musk was being so deferential.
Enamored, and why wouldn't you? You've got a guy,
the richest guy in the world,
and not just that. They argue the greatest engineer we've had, a commercial engineer since Edison, right? And you've got that guy that's in Pennsylvania writing a huge check, being around. But to me,
nobody said Edison was a great father, though.
Maybe Tesla. No,
I've heard Bell was kind of a jerk too. That it wasn't a lot of fun to work for Alexander Graham Bell.
I think they're all pretty focused.
You kind of have to be.
Yes,
is the argument.
But this situation, when I say full back, there will never be the relationship there once was. President Trump, I think, bent over backwards, and here's why.